Hi everyone, I'm Chandresh and I head the business and strategy for Amplify Mobility. And the reason that we are doing what we are doing is because the biggest thorn that is standing in the way of adoption of electric vehicles in India is in a way one of the biggest reasons is charging infra availability, and that is the problem that we are trying to solve in a sustainable way, both environmentally and financially. And that is what is our goal for the next couple of years, that we want to enable every single individual to drive EVs in this country, and that is what we are working on, and we would not stop until that happens. So with that idea, Amplify Mobility was conceived, and we started working on that grounds. Um, as we got into this business and as we got forward, there were a lot of new things that we got to know, a lot of presumptions that we had about the industries, which were actually broken, and we moved from what made more sense in terms of both business as well as in terms of what is right for the electric vehicle industry at this point of time in India. So today, briefly, I would like to talk about few topics like um, basically, what is the overall cost of owning an EV, and when it comes to two, three, and four wheelers, and what is the way forward in case of all these three types of body types, and what is the infrastructure availability currently in India, and what we are looking at for the future, and what will make more sense in terms of public as well as captive or non-public infrastructure, and what does it take to build a public charging infra for fleets. That is one thing I would be covering, and different business models or different business opportunities that are available in EV or EV charging space or in EVs in general. So let me start with one thing, that is the cost of EVs. So today the cost of EVs, the capital cost is the biggest problem when it comes to EVs. The capital cost being high makes the EVs, a choice that is a little difficult, because first, the biggest reason is that people just think of the upfront cost, not as the overall cost of owning an EV. That is the biggest trouble with, and there needs to be a proper education, proper understanding of what a EV can do, and what is the total cost of ownership, not just the upfront cost. And if that is being conveyed, and that kind of information is conveyed and conveyed in the right manner, I think there'll be more EV adoption across the country. So first, so there are three body types. Basically, there is two, three, and four wheelers when it comes to EVs. So two and three wheelers will be the key, will be the fastest growing market in India, is what our general or my understanding is. There are a couple of reasons for that. So, and but the four wheeler passenger market is going to take some time. The reason being the high cost of the battery and high overall capital cost as well. So two wheelers, the basic cost of the vehicle is not much different from other two wheelers available in the market if you compare, and that is one big reason why it will be easier for adoption, because the capital cost difference is not too much. And beyond that, you can easily save close to 20-25,000 per year on your EV in fuel cost and other cost of operation. So these are the two biggest reasons why two wheeler will come in much faster than four wheelers. And when it comes to three wheelers passenger and three wheelers loaders, when you take, or some sort of transport vehicles, again they make more sense, because on commercial, in general, if I have to tell you, commercial adoption is much easier and faster than the consumer adoption. The reason being that uh, if you run the vehicle more, automatically you're making more money out of the vehicle, and you're normalizing the capital cost much faster. So commercial adoption will make more sense, and it also its advantages over the other counterparts, diesel, petrol, or whatever it is. So especially the rates of diesel going skyrocketing, and it's becoming more expensive than petrol and couple of all other things. And otherwise also, commercial EV, when it comes to a commercial three wheeler, and versus a diesel three-wheeler. So if you take look at the cost per kilometer, the difference is almost, the cost of three-wheeler diesel would be around 3 rupees, whereas it will be less than 1 rupee when it comes to a cost of three-wheeler EV. And same thing, if you look at two-wheelers, it is close to 1.5 rupees when it comes to petrol, whereas it is less than 15, less than 20 paisa when it comes to the two-wheeler EVs. And when it comes to commercial four-wheelers, again, the cost is close to cost is between 5 to 7 rupees per kilometer, whereas when it comes to EVs, it is just 2.5 rupees, and which will even reduce as the battery prices reduce over time, which is happening we are seeing a year-to-year reduction of price for almost 13% on the battery. So from 2010 to 2020, if you look, then the EV battery packs were around $1,000 per kilowatt hour, just come down to $400 per kilowatt hour. So that's a lot of reduction, and that's what we'll see in the future. And the upfront cost is going to continuously reduce over time, and that is what will lead to the adoption in the consumer space. Whereas commercial space will see more adoption day by day, and most of these most of these logistic companies will go EV shopping now after the current scenario, and that is what looks that looks inevitable now. So that is my take on two, three, and four wheelers adoption in India, both consumer and commercial purposes. And coming to what we are doing is basically we are trying to set up public charging infrastructure, sustainable public charging infrastructure across the country. And when it comes to sustainable public charging infrastructure, our main concentration has been fleets. The reason being that we understand the personal vehicle owner will charge at home because of the obvious reason that Lavanya stated, that most of these vehicles do not travel more than 50-60 kilometers up to 70 kilometers per day, even in the biggest of cities in India. And that being a home charging would be enough for them to actually deal with what is needed, what is needed to run couple of days or 3 days. And most of the public charging will be as a top-up charging. And so I do not believe that public charging for personal vehicle will be a big thing. But at the same time, it is extremely necessary because there is some doubt in the head of people. Some doubt, they think that though it is not real, they think that where is the charging infrastructure? They always ask that question, where is the charging infrastructure? And without the availability of charging infrastructure, what is the guarantee? What if my EV stops? Though those are not real, but they are always behind a consumer's head, and they take time to process the fact that it might not even be needed. But for those things, for those problems of range anxiety, there has to be strategic placement of this public chargers, which also serve as the the barrier breaker of thinking about that range anxiety is a real problem, and also to serve as top-up charging for emergency at the same time if something has to be done. And it will make more sense when EVs become something of a cross interstate travel and those kind of thing. Highway charging will become a thing over time. So that is where we'll see more public charging when it comes to personal vehicles. And yes, so currently what we are doing is trying to create public charging station or charging stations in general for fleets, and we are trying to help motivate and encourage any fleet to turn their operations, or turn their fleets into EVs. So though they already have diesel vehicles, but some part of their fleet they can turn into EVs. There is a push from the other side also, a lot of employee transport, a lot of people who take deliveries. The B2B businesses are pushing logistic companies to turn into EVs, and at the same time it makes a lot of operational sense for them to turn into EVs, turn their fleet into EVs. So these are the this is the major business that we are dealing with at this point of time. And so it is not just installing this power anything that gives out power. It is also about the technology around it, the software, the things that the particular charger can do, or the communication that it can have with the person remotely, looking at their fleets and what is happening and what is charging and how long it will take. All those things can be maintained and done over remotely. So the whole ecosystem is being created across. For EV charging infrastructure, and we are trying to help all the commercial fleets, may it be employee transport, may it be on-demand services, may it be logistic companies, to turn electric. So that is what we are currently doing. Yes.
Awesome. I think we're going to open up the place for anyone to ask any questions to Chand, and also maybe there are a couple of follow-up questions that we have with regards to first of all, the rate at which you see infrastructure developing in India. Like you mentioned that there's a lot of like range anxiety and that they have follow-up questions, though they might not necessarily have really issues with charging, but you see infrastructure as being an issue. So how long do you think that India is going to be in a space where we can confidently say that, charging infra is not a problem?
So it is going to take close to my idea is it is going to take around 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is a ever increasing process, and I don't think so at any point of time we could say, because the adoption will keep happening, and at the same time the number of points need to be increased on on time to time. So it will be an increasing process, but I think in 3 to 4 years we'll be able to have something substantial, so that this particular transition is made smooth and fast.
Okay. We have a question from Adarsh, and
Yes.
he's asking you, what are the major differences you find between Telangana and Delhi's EV policy as of now?
Okay, so the major thing that I could say, so I have not I haven't seen the detailed policy yet, but one major difference is the price of electricity itself, which is much lower in Delhi than in Telangana. Then in Delhi, it is the kind of subsidies that are given are much stronger, much better, and that is what I see currently. And I'll be willing to answer that question once in detail gone through both the policies.
Okay. Another question that we wanted to kind of like address was, how easy is it for an electric vehicle charging infra company to actually deal with different states? Like you want to create a public charging system across the country, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with so many different states, so many different civic
Correct, correct, correct,
and
correct.
infrastructure companies. How easy or difficult is this landscape for you to access and deal with?
So I think the most complicated part in setting up charging station is not charging station. It is the everything around it. That is the infrastructure, the electricity board that you have to deal with, the people, all the stakeholders that come into picture, and getting all those things together is pretty complicated.
Right.
And at the same time making economic sense to what you're doing. So the combination of all that does take time, and we have been fairly successful in doing it. So the biggest problem I see is the availability of space at the right price. And I believe that the partnership, the strong partnerships with big infra players across the country will be the key to this problem. And that is what we are working on. And the second big problem is the availability of power at the location, and the ways in which you can achieve it. So the time it takes, the dealing with the government, the power discoms across in different states. And I've had different experiences, my team has had different experiences with different states. And there have been some states which have been like Mumbai, where power problem is sorry the power connection problems are less when it comes to the private players, whereas dealing with them in Bangalore is a little difficult, or Pune is much more difficult, because or Thane itself, if you take. So
Yeah.
so the different states have different problems of this kind. And again, so the kind of partnership you form with the infra players, the space is the most important thing. You have the space. I think that is the key to setting up any infrastructure.
One point that we wanted to address was also the many ways in which electric vehicle companies are providing mobility solutions. Like you're teaming up with fintech partners. Amplify itself has announced a new solution for logistics companies where you're
Yes,
offering
yes.
up a lot of the the main infrastructure. Do you think that this is necessary for the EV market space right now, like this approach?
Um, Yes. So the most important thing today is see now when you look at the EV charging business in general or EV charging in general. So as I said, commercial fleets are the ones that will adopt fastest because it makes more sense because they sweat their vehicle more. They need this charging infrastructure. One thing. Second thing is that it makes it saves money for them. The operational cost is much lesser. The fuel cost is much lesser.
Mhm.
And when it comes to logistic companies, again, it's the same game. And the thing is that these logistic companies also have pressure from their own partners. One second thing, they also understand that their cost of delivery will come down a lot. And the third thing, of course, is they are turning into a sustainable, their deliveries are turning electric, and that is leading to zero air pollution. So these are the things, and it is extremely necessary for these, especially the logistic companies, to move to go electric. Yes.
Okay. Um, all right. We have another follow-up question from Adarsh. He says
Okay.
that, do we have a grid infrastructure that is ready to support the EV charging ecosystem? And since the annual power output input to grids in India is around 20 gigawatts, whereas with EV coming out, we will require more power input into the grid.
Yeah. So the grid. So currently, the number of EVs or the EVs itself is the it's not so high. It's not troubling the grid so much. But in the coming future, yes, I agree to what you're saying that we will need better grids, smarter grids, and also alternate sources of power and increase the overall power capacity. Otherwise, it is going to be a big trouble.
Okay. Do you see the EV system along with the grids and the public charging systems becoming something akin to like the telecom industry in India, where you see
Um, Okay. So when you say telecom industry, you mean to say what?
infrastructure
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Sorry.
particularly to do with the infrastructure, how telecom infrastructure is a matter of national importance. And it's kind of become a critical need for every country to ensure that they have the latest technology and that they're like, able to provide the latest technology to its consumers, right?
So I think that is inevitable because we know EVs will, EV. So most vehicles turning to EVs is inevitable. 5 years, 10 years, or whatever timeline we look at. And of course, to be aided by good technology will be the key. Great user experience will be the key for. Yeah, you could say you could actually say that it might be. Yes.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of today's session. Chand, do you have any parting words? Are there any other questions in the room? Sorry. Okay. I think we will see them. Chand, if you have any parting words, I think it's been a great session. I'm also going
Sure.
to
Sure.
like have a audio version put up online for the people who weren't here. Um, yeah, please let us know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that is it.
Okay. Thank you everyone for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again for the second version. Oh, I'm sorry. Adarsh has another question, Chand, if you have 1 minute. Okay.
Sure.
He's asking you, what are the skill sets that a EV startup like Amplify looks for in an engineering graduate?
So,
Yeah.
it's multitude. It's not one. So, what we need right from because we manufacture charging station, we need somebody who is good at electronics engineer, some firmware development. That is one thing. Then also on the testing end, we have a lot of needs. Then design needs are there. Then other major skill set you would see is operational excellence. That is we look at. Of course, other than that is we are trying to develop some great software solution around our charging stations. So app development, the backend, and those are the key skills that we look at. So if I have in a ballpark, it is going to be a firmware development, then it is design, and then it is testing and the software around it.